all my favorite dialogue. That's at least that's the way that I look.
Not true at all.
So,
oh gosh. No, thank you, Alex. That's a lovely question. It's, there's, I do have favorite bits. My favorite scene in the entire movie, is the scene when Jack and Muriel are they've just gotten rid of Rosie and they're kind of confessing their feelings to each other, and it's kind of the beginning of the end of the movie. That, and then Jack's voicemail he leaves in the garage. This thing came together so fast, and I was writing by the seat of my pants. So my chief North Star in writing it was just like, what am I not hearing? What am I not seeing? What's something that I wish I was hearing? This movie is a hug for people who need it. And so I wanted to basically make some points that I get often frustrated in other movies when, two characters are in a scene and there's very clearly something to be said, and they don't say it. And I get that, like, oh, but man, that's life. It's like, yeah, but this isn't life. This is a movie. And the point of art is like, hey, let's have the conversations. So many shitty scripts are out there that are like written because, oh, she left and I'm going to write this script that says I was right. So many bad scripts. But those are my favorite things because I wanted to, what Jack says to Muriel about, it's not that I want to, it's not even that I want to help you. I just want to be with you. It's a byproduct. I want to be with you even if you don't need help. I want, whatever it is, this is where I want to be, next to you. And Muriel say, I like the afterlife that I have, and I'm not sure I don't know that you're worth the risk of losing what I've built. And I don't know that this version of me is ready to accept that. Like, these are things that I think and feel, and that I didn't really feel like I was seeing anywhere. And then the voicemail is just me, like, we talked before. I struggle with depression and suicidal ideation, and it's things that I've thought many times of just like, I don't know, none of this makes sense. Why does what I do have to make sense when what you do doesn't?
I agree. It's my favorite scene of the film. I don't know. I'm like up to 8, 9 times I've watched A Ghost Waits at this point, and I can't ignore.
I still have you beat.
Yeah, and not only that, you're also watching the same edit over and over, and I don't know, that doesn't fit quite right here. That's not as cohesive as I need to be. Yeah. And now we have to move it back a little bit. Okay, let's watch it again, and we're gonna watch it again. Yeah, no, I get a lump in my throat every time that I've watched it. I've had a lump in my throat when that scene is happening, and I think that is also where everybody in the production is all systems go. I mean, some of the shots that Michael is using there, perfect. I love kind of the you have Muriel out of focus as we are on a close-up of Jack, like, everything works for me. The dialogue and the setup there, and sometimes in film that's not always the case. It's one or the other. This man is turning in a great performance, but this was an odd choice of shot. Why are we doing a wide shot here when I want to see MacLeod's emotion, who, by the way, plays that scene. So it's very hard for me to believe in perfect, but if there was perfect, MacLeod in that scene is it for sure.
His performance is just amazing.
It's so fun to watch, and actually that I was talking to Alex, and when he had asked that question, he said his favorite part of the film was how real the characters felt, how real Jack felt, and I was just
Thank you, Alex.
yeah, and I was like, man, like, and it does, and I think one of the many reasons why it plays for me, and I've told you, like, I am Jack, you know, this movie is no longer Adam's, it's mine, and and it's because I identified so well with Jack, and it's not just what he's going through, it's how he's dealing with it, which I was just like, holy shit, this is eerily similar, as we've discussed before. But no, Alex definitely was just like that. That was probably my favorite part of the film, was just like, I felt like I knew this dude. So, Alex, there you go, sir. There's your answer. Evan, I love you, Evan. Evan asks, when it came to music selection, did you always have in mind the songs that you wanted to do, or were these something, or was the songs came in post after you were kind of editing and taking a look at what worked?
Evan, I think you're all right, Evan. Yeah. Okay. So music. I'm like anyone else who makes a movie. You know, like nobody does it on accident. I spent years thinking about what a movie that I made would be, and what I like and what I want to incorporate. I love movies that use music well. You know, Cameron Crowe and Quentin Tarantino and Scorsese, and you know, I mean, yeah, like these are things that I grew up watching and just like, oh, okay, this is the stuff right here. And so I always knew that when I made a movie, I would want the soundtrack to be a key element of it. And I spent my 20s going to live music, like all the time, you know, a few shows a week, sometimes a few a night. And I just got to know a lot of musicians. And so when this happened, when this started taking shape, I reached out, just like, hey, I finally get to make a movie. Can I use your song? And for the most part, like in the specific case of Honey Honey and their song Punk Kid, which plays a couple times in the movie, they have had the good fortune to have a studio behind them each time they've made an album. But that means that a label owns all of their music except one song, which is Punk Kid. And so I was like, hey, can I have your Orphan, please? You know, because I can afford friend prices, but I can't afford label prices. And they very kindly said yes. Woodsy, I've known them since before they were a band. I actually gave them one of their first gigs back when I was doing a comedy show in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so, you know, when we decided to put Yellow Cotton Dress in the movie, you know, I just messaged Mark Messerly, like, hey man, can I use Yellow Cotton Dress? And like 15 minutes later, he and Chuck and Lisa were like, yep, it's yours. You know, the Bangsons, whose song Years Go By ends the movie, I have seen them do it. Oh my God, I know.
It just shatters me.
It's so good. I had seen them do it. They have a show called 100 Days, and they workshopped it at the No Theater in Cincinnati. I had seen it there. And I met them one morning. We were in line for coffee, and I recognized, like, hey, I saw your show. It's amazing. And then, you know, like, hey, I might get to make a movie sometime soon. If I do, I'd really like to use some of your music. And they're like, yeah, man, stay in touch. So when I was out one night, and the ending just kind of occurred to me. I heard that song, and I saw a garage, and I was like, oh, I know what the ending is. I immediately, like that night, emailed Sean Bankson, just like, hey buddy, can I use Years Go By? And you know, they again very obviously very kindly said yes. So yeah, like a lot of it was by design of like, I knew I wanted, like with Honey Honey, we've just been friends for a long time. Like, I mean, with all of them, but like, so I knew I wanted to use their music. And in that case, there was one specific song with Woodsy. There was a couple different ones that I was thinking about, and went with Yellow Cotton Dress, which MacLeod very quickly was like, why were you ever thinking about another song? Like, this was perfect. Yeah. So I really, it means so much that people are really sparking to the soundtrack, because I worked very hard on that, and it's such a huge part of what the movie is in my heart. So that's really validating and kind of amazing to see.
Yeah, actually, just a random story for Adam had mentioned that he can afford friend prices, but not studio prices. I'm going to kind of date myself here briefly, but I'll just give you a brief story about prices. So I will just say I was uncredited, unpaid help on I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. I'm definitely dating myself, but so I was helping out the editor of that, who's actually a good friend of mine and the family, Jeff Gorson. Hello, sir. I'll never forget the first time I heard them discussing prices for songs, and it was actually an Audio Slave song. And I'll never forget, he leaned over to I would assume one of his PAs and is just like, do we have $110,000 to use this one song? And I was just like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, no, those are the prices, $110,000 to use this Audio Slave song, and we're only gonna, it's only gonna be 50 seconds that we're gonna use, not even the song. And I was just like, what the fuck? It was my first, I was very green in LA at that point, so hearing something like that, I was just blown away. So Alex, when he says, those are studio prices, 50 seconds, $110,000. Holy shit. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of lump two questions together because they're similar and one is a little bit more specific than the other. So John and Brittany, John asked, did you use any other films as an inspiration just before the shoot? And I will double it up with Brittany, who asks, were Beetlejuice and Romeo and Juliet an inspiration for this film?
Thank you, John and Brittany. John, no. So I have a rule that you should never remind the audience they could be watching a better movie.
Nice.
So
I love that. Nice.
Yeah. I try to, and also my process of writing, I have a lot of ideas, and most things have been done, and it's so much easier to not write than to write, that if I have an idea that's been done, I will just pop popcorn and watch that thing. So I don't really start writing something until I don't think it works, which is to say that I haven't seen it work. It becomes a puzzle, because the really great thing about cinema as an art is that you get to use the tools of everything. So there's really no rules. It just has to work as an experience. And that's a really fun puzzle to solve, like I said. So I don't want people thinking about other movies when we're going into it. It's more about the solving the script. Okay, this is the point of the scene. This is the point of the character. How do we best service that? That being said, literally everyone is like, so The Shining, right? Which brings us to Brittany's question. Beetlejuice lives in my head. It's one of my favorite movies. I now that I say that, I think, yeah, the demon itself probably does too. But movies that I love. I mean, I always joke that my brain is basically a hard drive filled with every movie I've ever seen and song I've ever heard just on shuffle. There's usually something playing in the back of my head, and it's not a great experience, to be honest.
No, it's not.
But so, things like Beetlejuice, things like The Shining, are invariably going to work their way in. And again, because I was writing so quickly, I never stopped to think, I never stopped to think about reference. I never stopped to think about how can I use another movie in what is hopefully an interesting way, except for one scene. There's one scene in this movie that is just straight up stolen from another. And it's because we were in the second set of pickups, which we did not think we were going to need. And so once we realized that, because the lingering notes would happen, and one of the primary lingering notes was initially